What if I told you that everything you've been desperately searching for in the outside world has been waiting patiently inside you all along? What if the peace that seems to slip through your fingers, the abundance that feels just out of reach, the love you believe you don't deserve, and the healing you've been praying for are not distant dreams, but present realities buried beneath layers of forgotten truth? Has this ever happened to you? You've tried meditation apps, read countless self-help books, attended seminars, and maybe even explored various spiritual practices, yet something still feels missing. You've repeated affirmations until your voice grew hoarse, visualized your dreams until your eyes were tired, but the breakthrough you're yearning for remains elusive. Here's what most people don't realize, and what you're about to discover might surprise you. The problem isn't that these methods don't work. The problem is that we've been trying to build a house without first clearing the foundation. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Deep within your consciousness lies a sacred space that has been forgotten, a hidden temple where the divine meets you directly, without intermediaries, without complicated rituals, without the need for anyone else's permission or approval. This isn't some mystical concept reserved for enlightened masters or ancient sages. This is your spiritual subconscious, the most powerful creative force you possess, yet the most neglected aspect of your being. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share with you comes from teachings that have transformed countless lives, principles that reveal why your prayers sometimes feel unanswered, why your efforts seem to hit invisible walls, and most importantly, how to access the unlimited potential that's been dormant within you. Your subconscious mind isn't just a storage facility for memories and habits. It's a living sanctuary, a divine workshop where thoughts become things, where beliefs crystallize into reality, where the invisible becomes visible. But here's the crucial part that changes everything. This sacred space within you operates according to specific spiritual laws, and when you understand these laws, when you learn to work with them rather than against them, miracles stop being exceptions and start becoming your natural way of life. The ancient wisdom tells us that the kingdom of heaven is within, but what does that actually mean in practical terms? How do you access this inner kingdom? How do you awaken the Christ consciousness that lies dormant in your spiritual subconscious? And most importantly, how do you transform this awakening into tangible changes in your health, relationships, finances, and overall life experience? The answers to these questions lie in understanding the forgotten science of the soul, the precise mechanics of how your inner temple operates, and the specific techniques that can unlock this hidden potential and revolutionize your entire existence from the inside out. Here's the revelation that changes everything. You don't need to spend years in therapy dissecting your past mistakes or traumatic experiences. You don't need to battle against the circumstances of your life or try to force the world to bend to your will. The transformation you're seeking doesn't require you to become someone completely different or to achieve some impossible standard of perfection. What it requires is something far more profound, yet surprisingly simple: a return to the center, to your spiritual subconscious, where the living image of Christ consciousness already resides, waiting to be acknowledged and activated. This is perhaps the most liberating truth you'll ever encounter, because it means that every moment of your past, every decision that brought you to this point, every challenge you've faced, every triumph you've celebrated, has been leading you to this precise understanding. Your journey hasn't been a series of random events or cosmic accidents. It's been a carefully orchestrated awakening process, guiding you back home to yourself, back to the sacred space within, where miracles are not only possible but inevitable. If this depth of spiritual truth is speaking to your soul, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I share these transformative insights regularly because I believe you deserve access to wisdom that actually changes lives, not just motivational content that fades by tomorrow. The kingdom that spiritual teachings have spoken about for centuries isn't some distant realm accessible only after death or through extraordinary acts of devotion. The kingdom doesn't come through external observation, through studying religious texts until your eyes strain, or through endless searching in the outside world for signs and wonders. The kingdom is within you right now, at this very moment, and it's time to remember this truth that has been obscured by layers of conditioning, doubt, and misunderstanding. Think about the implications of this for a moment. Every external situation you've been trying to change, every relationship you've been attempting to fix, every financial challenge you've been struggling to overcome, every health issue you've been fighting against, all of these are simply reflections of what's happening in your inner kingdom. When you change the inner, the outer has no choice but to follow. When you transform the foundation, the entire structure shifts automatically. This isn't positive thinking or wishful imagination. This is understanding the fundamental mechanics of reality itself. Your subconscious mind operates like a faithful servant, accepting whatever instructions you give it through your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, then working tirelessly behind the scenes to manifest those instructions in your physical experience. The problem is that most people have been giving their subconscious contradictory and destructive instructions without even realizing it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the hidden mechanics of how your spiritual subconscious actually processes and responds to different types of mental and emotional input is where the real transformation begins. There are specific laws governing this inner realm, precise principles that determine whether your subconscious becomes your greatest ally or your most persistent obstacle. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to remember," if this resonates with your soul and you're prepared to discover the forgotten science that can unlock your inner kingdom. Your subconscious isn't some abstract psychological concept that exists only in textbooks and theoretical discussions. It's not a dormant storage unit sitting quietly in the background of your awareness. What you're dealing with here is a living sanctuary, the most sacred and powerful part of your mind, operating as a divine workshop where every image, every thought charged with emotion, every belief you hold gets transformed into the concrete facts of your daily experience. This is where the real magic happens, behind the scenes of your conscious awareness. While you're going about your day, making decisions, having conversations, pursuing your goals, this sacred sanctuary is continuously receiving deposits, mental images, emotional imprints, repeated thoughts, and then working with relentless precision to manifest these deposits as your lived reality. It's like having a master craftsman working 24 hours a day, taking the blueprints you provide and building your life according to those exact specifications. Here's what makes this discovery so revolutionary. Your subconscious doesn't sleep. It never takes a break, never goes on vacation, never decides to work half-heartedly on your behalf. While your conscious mind rests, dreams, gets distracted, or even shuts down completely during sleep, your subconscious remains fully operational, processing, organizing, and manifesting. It's the ultimate faithful servant, never questioning your authority, never arguing with your instructions, never judging whether what you're asking for is good or bad for you. This non-judgmental nature of your subconscious is perhaps both its greatest gift and its most dangerous aspect. Whatever you accept as true, whatever you emotionally charge with conviction, whatever you repeat with feeling, your subconscious takes as a direct command and begins the process of making it manifest in your physical world. It doesn't evaluate whether your beliefs are empowering or limiting. It doesn't analyze whether your mental images will bring you joy or suffering. It simply receives and responds, creates and manifests, builds and delivers. If something just clicked for you in that explanation, go. ahead and hit the like button. It helps me know that this level of spiritual depth is what you're truly seeking, and it encourages me to keep sharing these powerful truths rather than surface-level content. Think about the profound implications of this understanding for your personal transformation journey. Every time you've said, "I never have enough money," your subconscious heard that as an instruction and began creating circumstances to validate that belief. Every time you've declared, "I always attract the wrong people," your faithful servant started arranging encounters that would prove you right. Every time you've affirmed, "I'm not smart enough, talented enough, worthy enough," this sacred sanctuary within you began constructing a reality that would mirror those self-imposed limitations. But here's where this revelation becomes incredibly empowering rather than discouraging. The same mechanism that has been working against you can be redirected to work for you. The same system that has been manifesting limitation can be reprogrammed to generate abundance. The same process that has been creating struggle can be transformed to produce ease and flow. The key lies in understanding how to communicate with this living sanctuary in the language it understands best. Now, what I'm about to share with you will completely change how you approach personal development, because most people have been trying to influence their subconscious using methods that simply don't work. They've been speaking the wrong language, using the wrong frequency, approaching this sacred space with techniques that actually create resistance rather than receptivity. Write in the comments, "My sanctuary is awakening," if you're beginning to see how your inner world has been shaping your outer experience all along. The ancient wisdom contained in that profound biblical verse, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap," isn't just moral guidance or philosophical reflection. It's revealing the actual operating system of your spiritual subconscious. This scripture is describing the most fundamental law governing human experience, a divine mechanism that functions with mathematical precision every single moment of your existence. Your subconscious operates exactly like fertile soil in a master gardener's field. Just as soil doesn't discriminate between flower seeds and weed seeds, just as it provides the same nourishing environment for both beautiful roses and poisonous plants, your subconscious sanctuary accepts every thought seed you plant with emotional conviction and tends to it with equal dedication. The soil doesn't judge, doesn't pick favorites, doesn't decide which seeds deserve to grow. It simply receives, nurtures, and produces according to whatever has been planted within it. Your thoughts, especially those charged with strong emotion and repeated consistently, function as these seeds. When you plant thoughts of abundance, gratitude, and divine connection with genuine feeling, your subconscious soil begins growing circumstances that match those vibrations. When you repeatedly sow thoughts of lack, fear, and separation with emotional intensity, that same faithful soil produces experiences that validate those limiting beliefs. The law is neutral, the process is impartial, but the results are absolutely inevitable. This revelation completely transforms how you understand your current life situation. Whatever you're experiencing right now, your relationships, your health, your financial circumstances, your emotional state, your opportunities or lack thereof, none of this is happening to you as some form of cosmic punishment or random chance. You're not a victim of circumstances beyond your control, nor are you being tested by a capricious universe that randomly distributes blessings and curses. What you're witnessing in your external reality is the faithful harvest of what you have deeply believed about yourself, about God, about life itself. These aren't necessarily beliefs you consciously chose, or even beliefs you're aware of holding. Many of these foundational beliefs were planted in your subconscious soil during childhood, inherited from family patterns, absorbed from cultural conditioning, or formed during moments of intense emotional experience that left lasting impressions in your inner sanctuary. The transformative power of this understanding lies in recognizing that if your current reality is the result of past mental seeds, then your future reality can be completely different based on what you choose to plant starting today. You're not bound by your history, trapped by your circumstances, or limited by what others have told you about your potential. You're the gardener of your own consciousness, holding the power to clear out unwanted growth and cultivate an entirely new harvest. This is why traditional approaches to personal development often fall short of producing lasting transformation. They focus on changing behaviors, circumstances, or external conditions without addressing the root system, the deep beliefs and mental patterns that are continuously generating your experience from within. It's like trying to change the fruit by painting it different colors instead of nurturing the tree's roots with different nutrients. Now, what becomes fascinating is understanding how these deep beliefs originally took root in your consciousness, because once you see the hidden mechanics behind this process, you gain the ability to deliberately plant new seeds that will transform your entire life experience from the inside out. Write in the comments, "I am the gardener," if you're ready to take conscious control over what grows in the sacred soil of your subconscious mind. The disturbing truth about your current mental landscape is that for years, perhaps decades, you've been unknowingly allowing foreign thoughts to take up residence in your sacred inner sanctuary. These aren't thoughts that originated from your authentic self or from divine inspiration. These are inherited ideas passed down through generations of family conditioning, limiting beliefs absorbed from authority figures who themselves were operating from limited understanding, unhealed emotional wounds that crystallized into negative thought patterns, and cultural programming that has nothing to do with your true spiritual nature. There's so much more where this came from, and if you're someone who hungers for this level of spiritual understanding, hit that subscribe button. I'm committed to bringing you the kind of deep, practical wisdom that most spiritual teachers keep hidden behind expensive courses. Imagine if strangers kept walking into your physical home and leaving their belongings scattered throughout your living space. Picture them rearranging your furniture, changing your decor, and filling your refrigerator with food you didn't choose. You would never tolerate such an invasion in your external environment. Yet this is exactly what has been happening in your internal environment, the most sacred space you possess. These foreign mental tenets have been operating behind the scenes of your consciousness, influencing your decisions, shaping your self-perception, and creating the very limitations that have been frustrating you. When your parents repeatedly said, "Money doesn't grow on trees," during your formative years, that wasn't just casual conversation. It was programming being installed in your subconscious operating system. When teachers told you that you weren't smart enough, creative enough, or capable enough, those weren't just passing comments. They were becoming permanent residents in your inner sanctuary, continuously broadcasting messages that would shape your future choices and opportunities. The compound effect of carrying these foreign thought patterns for years has been the creation of a life that feels smaller than what you know you're capable of experiencing. You've been living within artificial boundaries, accepting limitations that were never truly yours, and struggling against invisible barriers that exist only in the conditioned layers of your consciousness. Your authentic self, your divine nature, your unlimited potential has been buried beneath accumulated mental debris that doesn't belong to you. But here's where this entire conversation shifts from diagnosis to healing, from problem identification to solution activation. The profound truth revealed in Romans 12, verse 2, speaks directly to your current situation. Be transformed by the renewal of your understanding. This isn't suggesting that transformation is a distant possibility requiring years of therapy or spiritual practice. This scripture is declaring that transformation happens through the renewal of your understanding, and this renewal can begin right now, in this very moment. The word renewal implies that something pure and powerful already exists within you that simply needs to be uncovered, cleaned, and restored to its original function. You're not trying to become someone you've never been. You're remembering who you've always been beneath the accumulated layers of foreign programming. You're not creating new abilities. You're accessing the infinite potential that has been dormant, waiting for the mental static to be cleared so it can finally express itself. The beauty of this redemption process lies in its simplicity and immediacy. Your subconscious sanctuary, no matter how cluttered it has become with limiting beliefs and negative thought patterns, maintains its fundamental nature as a space of infinite creative potential. The moment you begin feeding it thoughts aligned with truth, love, and divine possibility, it immediately begins responding to these new instructions with the same faithful precision it has always demonstrated. Now, what makes this transformation process both powerful and practical is understanding the specific methods that allow you to effectively communicate with your subconscious in the language it responds to most readily. Write in the comments, "I choose renewal," if you're ready to clear out the foreign programming and reclaim your inner sanctuary. The breakthrough insight that changes everything about your approach to personal transformation lies in understanding that your subconscious sanctuary operates on a completely different communication system than your logical, analytical mind. While your conscious mind processes information through reasoning, debate, evidence, and rational analysis, your subconscious responds exclusively to images, emotions, repetition, and vibration. This is why intellectual understanding alone never produces lasting change, and why people can know exactly what they should do differently, yet find themselves repeating the same self-defeating patterns. Your subconscious doesn't care about your perfectly crafted arguments for why you deserve abundance. It doesn't respond to your logical explanations about why you should be healthy, successful, or happy. It completely bypasses your rational justifications and responds only to the language of feeling, the currency of consistent emotional repetition, and the frequency of vibration that you consistently broadcast from your inner being. This revelation explains why traditional self-help approaches often create temporary motivation but fail to produce permanent transformation. When you try to convince your subconscious through willpower, positive thinking, or intellectual affirmations that lack genuine emotional conviction, you're essentially speaking a foreign language to your most powerful ally. It's like trying to program a computer using poetry instead of code. The intention might be beautiful, but the system simply cannot process that type of input. However, when you begin communicating with your subconscious in its native language, magic happens with surprising speed. Consider what occurs when you repeat with genuine faith and emotional conviction a truth like, "God is my provision. Everything I need is given to me." This isn't just positive thinking or hopeful wishing. This is a precisely targeted transmission being sent directly to your creative subconscious, using the exact frequency it responds to most powerfully. When this type of revelation lands in your consciousness and you feel that aha moment happening, a quick tap on the like button lets me know I'm on the right track. It's your way of saying, yes, this is the spiritual food my soul has been craving. As you repeat this divine truth with authentic feeling, something profound begins happening beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. The idea doesn't just bounce around in your thinking mind. It starts descending deeper, penetrating through the layers of old programming, making its way into the very soul of your being, where real transformation originates. Each repetition charged with faith acts like a gentle but persistent force, wearing away the resistance created by years of contrary programming. The transformation process begins not when you understand this concept intellectually, but when this truth becomes emotionally real to you, when it stops being something you're trying to believe and becomes something you know with unshakable conviction. Your subconscious sanctuary recognizes authentic vibration immediately, and once it receives a clear, emotionally charged instruction that aligns with divine truth, it begins rearranging your entire internal landscape to match that new programming. This is why the most powerful prayers are not elaborate theological dissertations, but simple, heartfelt declarations repeated with unwavering faith until they become more real to you than your current circumstances. Your subconscious doesn't need complex explanations. It needs clear directives delivered with genuine emotional intensity and consistent repetition. Now, understanding. This communication protocol opens up an entirely new dimension of possibility, because once you know how to speak directly to your subconscious in the language it understands, you can begin deliberately reprogramming every area of your life that has been limited by old foreign thought patterns. Write in the comments, "I speak the language of faith," if you're beginning to understand how to communicate directly with your creative subconscious sanctuary. The moment you grasp this next revelation, your entire relationship with personal power shifts dramatically. You're not a passive observer of your inner spiritual landscape. You are the priest of your inner temple. This isn't just a beautiful metaphor or inspirational concept. This is a declaration of your actual spiritual authority and responsibility. Just as a priest in a sacred temple has complete dominion over what ceremonies are performed, what words are spoken, what energies are invoked, you have absolute authority over what thoughts, emotions, and declarations are permitted to resonate within your subconscious sanctuary. This priestly authority means that you decide what is spoken in the sacred space of your inner temple. You choose which thoughts receive your emotional energy and repetitive attention. You determine which beliefs are allowed to take root and which foreign ideas are rejected at the threshold. Most importantly, you have the power to consciously direct the spiritual atmosphere of your inner sanctuary through intentional, faith-filled declarations that align with divine truth rather than human limitation. Here's what makes this authority so profound. What is spoken in that temple is heard in heaven. Every declaration you make from the deep place of faith within your subconscious sanctuary reverberates through the spiritual dimensions of reality. Your inner temple isn't isolated from the divine realm. It's connected to it, networked with it, in constant communication with the infinite. Creative power that governs the universe. When you speak as the priest of your own consciousness, you're not just talking to yourself, you're broadcasting directly to the divine intelligence that orchestrates all manifestation. This understanding transforms simple affirmations into something far more powerful. When you declare with genuine faith, "I am health," you're not trying to convince yourself of something that might be true someday. You're speaking as a spiritual authority, proclaiming a divine truth that your subconscious sanctuary immediately receives as a sacred instruction. When you declare, "God is peace in me," you're not expressing a hopeful wish. You're establishing a spiritual atmosphere within your inner temple that your entire being begins to align with. When you affirm, "I am free because truth has made me free," you're not reciting empty words or engaging in positive thinking exercises. You are planting living seeds in the fertile soil of your subconscious, seeds that carry within them the complete genetic code for manifesting freedom in every area of your life. These declarations become living entities within your consciousness, growing, expanding, and transforming your entire internal ecosystem from limitation to liberation. The difference between these faith-filled declarations and ordinary affirmations lies in the consciousness from which they emerge. When you speak as the priest of your inner temple, you're speaking from divine authority rather than human hope. You're declaring what is eternally true in the spiritual realm, rather than trying to create something that doesn't yet exist. You're aligning your inner atmosphere with heaven's reality, rather than attempting to negotiate with earthly circumstances. If you're ready to go deeper into these spiritual mysteries and learn how to consistently access the divine power within your consciousness, subscribing to this channel ensures you won't miss any of these life-changing insights. This is just the beginning of what we can discover together. This priestly consciousness doesn't develop overnight, but it awakens the moment you recognize your true spiritual identity and begin exercising your divine authority over the sacred space within you. Every time you consciously choose truth over fear, faith over doubt, divine possibility over human limitation, you're strengthening your capacity to function as the spiritual authority in your own consciousness. Now, what becomes absolutely crucial in this journey of spiritual authority is understanding how to maintain the sacred atmosphere of your inner temple. Because the moment you allow foreign thoughts to contaminate this space, you compromise the effectiveness of every divine declaration you make. Write in the comments, "I am the priest," if you're ready to take full spiritual authority over your inner temple and the declarations that shape your reality. The sacred space you've been learning to govern as a spiritual priest isn't just any ordinary sanctuary. It's your personal promised land, the very realm where the milk and honey of the Spirit flow in unlimited abundance. This isn't metaphorical language or poetic imagery. Your subconscious sanctuary is literally the space where divine nourishment, spiritual sweetness, and unlimited provision exist in their purest form, waiting to be accessed through your awakened consciousness. In this inner promised land, Christ consciousness waits in perfect silence for your return. Not Christ as a distant historical figure, but Christ as the divine principle within you, the perfect spiritual template of who you truly are beneath all the accumulated programming and conditioning. This Christ presence has been waiting patiently through every moment of confusion, every season of struggle, every period of feeling lost or disconnected. It never left you. You simply forgot how to find your way back to this inner sanctuary where your true spiritual identity resides. The Sat. Journey back to this promised land isn't about traveling to a different location or achieving some extraordinary spiritual state. It's about remembering the path inward, recognizing that what you've been searching for in the external world has been dwelling within your own consciousness all along. Every time you exercise your priestly authority and speak divine truth into your inner temple, you're taking another step closer to this sacred reunion with your authentic self. This inner promised land operates according to principles that completely contradict everything you've been taught about how reality works. In the external world, you've been conditioned to believe that you must work harder to get more, struggle longer to achieve breakthrough, and prove your worthiness before receiving blessing. But in your subconscious promised land, abundance flows naturally, healing happens effortlessly, and miracles are the normal operating procedure. Here's where this understanding becomes revolutionary for your transformation journey. Everything that exists in your visible world was first an invisible image, born from thought charged with feeling. Every circumstance you're currently experiencing, every relationship in your life, every aspect of your health, finances, and opportunities, all of these began as invisible mental images that took root in your subconscious sanctuary and eventually manifested as physical reality. This means that your current external circumstances aren't the ultimate truth about what's possible for you. They're simply the materialization of whatever mental images have been dominant in your inner promised land. If your visible world reflects limitation, struggle, or lack, it's because limiting mental images have been permitted to flourish in your subconscious soil. If certain areas of your life feel stuck or repetitive, it's because the same mental images keep generating the same external results. The transformative power lies in recognizing that you can deliberately plant new invisible images in your subconscious promised land. Images charged with the emotional conviction of divine truth rather than human limitation. When you begin consciously seeding your inner sanctuary with images of health, abundance, love, and spiritual fulfillment, you're literally redesigning your future reality from the inside out. Now, what makes certain mental images more powerful than others in creating lasting transformation is understanding the specific elements that give an invisible image the strength to eventually become visible reality. Write in the comments, "I see the invisible becoming visible," if you're beginning to understand how your inner images shape your outer world. The crucial distinction that separates those who experience genuine transformation from those who remain frustrated despite their efforts lies in understanding this fundamental truth. Your subconscious obeys feeling, not repetition. This revelation completely dismantles the popular misconception that you can create change simply by mechanically repeating affirmations or mantras without genuine emotional investment. Your subconscious sanctuary doesn't respond to the quantity of words you speak. It responds to the quality of feeling you generate while speaking them. Think about the profound implications of this discovery for your personal transformation journey. You could repeat, "I am abundant," 10,000 times a day, but if those words are spoken without authentic emotional conviction, if they're delivered as hollow syllables disconnected from genuine feeling, your subconscious sanctuary will remain completely unmoved. It's like trying to plant seeds in concrete. No matter how many seeds you scatter, nothing will grow because the conditions aren't right for germination. If you're feeling that inner confirmation that this message was meant for you, show it with a like. It's a simple way to support this kind of deep spiritual content and ensure that more people who need this truth will be able to find it. However, when you speak the same declaration just once, with genuine faith, with emotional authenticity, with the full conviction of your being, that single emotionally charged repetition penetrates directly into your subconscious soil and begins the transformation process immediately. This is why some people experience dramatic breakthroughs after a single moment of profound realization, while others remain stuck. Despite years of mechanical spiritual practice, your subconscious operates as an emotion detection system, constantly scanning for authentic feeling behind every thought, word, and mental image you present to it. When it recognizes genuine emotional authenticity, it opens like a flower receiving sunlight, immediately beginning the process of manifesting whatever reality matches that authentic feeling. When it detects mechanical repetition without genuine conviction, it remains closed, unresponsive, unchanged. Understanding this emotion-based operating system reveals why there are 4 specific pathways that reliably impress your subconscious with transformative power. The first pathway involves constant repetition with feeling, not mindless chanting, but conscious, emotionally authentic repetition where each declaration carries genuine conviction and heartfelt belief. This type of repetition works like water consistently flowing over stone, gradually but inevitably wearing away old programming and establishing new patterns. The second pathway operates through sudden emotional impact, those powerful moments when truth hits your consciousness with such force that it bypasses all mental resistance and embeds directly into your subconscious sanctuary. These breakthrough moments often occur during times of crisis, revelation, or profound spiritual insight, when your normal defenses are down and truth can penetrate directly to the core of your being. The third pathway utilizes clear visualization combined with authentic emotion. When you create vivid mental images in your mind while simultaneously generating genuine feelings that match those images, you're speaking directly to your subconscious in its most preferred language. This isn't just daydreaming or wishful thinking, it's conscious communication with your creative sanctuary, using the precise frequency it responds to most powerfully. The fourth pathway emerges through deep inner silence, that profound state of spiritual stillness where your conscious mind quiets completely and your subconscious becomes maximally receptive to divine truth. In these moments of sacred silence, transformation can occur without words, without effort, without struggle, simply through the pure presence of spiritual alignment. Now, what makes this understanding so practically powerful is recognizing that you can deliberately cultivate each of these pathways, strategically using them to accelerate your transformation journey and ensure that your efforts produce tangible results rather than just temporary motivation. Write in the comments, "I feel the truth," if you're ready to move beyond mechanical repetition and begin communicating with your subconscious through authentic emotion. The transformative power of repetition lies not in its frequency, but in its reverence. When you understand that each repetition is an act of conscious sowing, each declaration becomes a sacred ceremony rather than a mechanical routine. Picture a master farmer approaching his most prized field. He doesn't carelessly scatter seeds while distracted by other concerns. Instead, he handles each seed with intention, places it deliberately in the prepared soil, and tends to it with genuine love and expectation of harvest. This is exactly the consciousness you must bring to your spiritual repetitions. Each time you declare divine truth into your subconscious sanctuary, you're performing a holy act of creation. You're not just repeating words. You're planting eternal seeds in sacred soil, seeds that carry within them the complete genetic code for manifesting miraculous transformation in your visible reality. When you approach repetition with this level of reverence and conscious intention, every declaration becomes charged with creative power. The farmer doesn't doubt whether his seeds will grow. He plants with unwavering confidence because he understands the laws governing growth and harvest. Similarly, when you speak divine truth with reverent repetition, you're not hoping something might happen. You're participating in a divine law that guarantees manifestation when the proper conditions are met. This reverent approach transforms simple affirmations into powerful spiritual technologies capable of reshaping your entire life experience. This understanding becomes even more profound when you recognize the incredible power of sudden emotional impact to create instant transformation. Throughout your life, you've witnessed how intense experiences and strong emotions can engrave ideas into your consciousness with lightning speed, leaving impressions so deep they influence your decisions and perceptions for years afterward. A single moment of intense fear can create a phobia that lasts decades. One powerful experience of rejection can establish patterns of self-protection that shape every future relationship. But here's what most people never realize. This same mechanism that can instantly embed limiting beliefs can be deliberately harnessed to install empowering truths. When divine revelation hits your consciousness during a moment of intense spiritual openness, when truth penetrates your awareness with overwhelming emotional force, when you experience a breakthrough moment where everything suddenly makes sense. These are the instances when years of gradual programming can be accomplished in a single transformative instant. The key to accessing this rapid transformation pathway lies in understanding how to create the optimal conditions for spiritual breakthrough moments. These don't happen randomly. They occur when your conscious defenses are lowered, when your heart is open, when you're in a state of receptive vulnerability that allows truth to bypass your mental resistance and embed directly into your subconscious sanctuary. This is why profound transformation often occurs during times of crisis, spiritual retreat, deep meditation, or moments of overwhelming gratitude and divine connection. Your subconscious becomes maximally impressionable during these emotionally charged states, creating windows of opportunity where single realizations can accomplish what years of gradual effort might struggle to achieve. The strategic implication is remarkable. You can deliberately cultivate these emotionally receptive states rather than waiting for them to occur accidentally. You can create sacred moments where your subconscious sanctuary becomes maximally open to receiving divine programming, moments when truth can penetrate so deeply that instant transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Now, what makes this approach so powerful is understanding how to combine the gradual power of reverent repetition with the instant power of emotional impact, creating a synergistic effect that accelerates transformation beyond what either method could accomplish alone. Write in the comments, "I plant with reverence," if you're ready to approach your spiritual declarations as sacred acts of conscious creation rather than mechanical repetition. This synergistic approach becomes exponentially more powerful when you discover that your subconscious sanctuary operates as a sophisticated image processing system rather than a logical reasoning device. While your conscious mind analyzes information through concepts, theories, and intellectual frameworks, your subconscious understands images, symbols, and visual representations. This isn't just a preference, it's the fundamental language through which your creative subconscious receives and processes all transformational programming. When you visualize clearly with genuine emotion, you're speaking directly to your subconscious in its native tongue, bypassing all the mental resistance and analytical filters that often block transformation. Every vivid mental image you create while feeling authentic, emotion becomes a blueprint that your subconscious immediately begins working to manifest in your physical reality. This isn't imagination or wishful thinking. This is precise communication with the most powerful creative force you possess. The transformative impact of this understanding completely revolutionizes your approach to personal development. Instead of trying to convince your subconscious through logical arguments about why you deserve better health, relationships, or abundance, you begin showing it clear visual images of what these improvements actually look like. You paint detailed mental pictures of yourself walking in perfect health, experiencing harmonious relationships, or living in abundant circumstances, and you charge these images with authentic feelings of gratitude, joy, and divine expectation. Your subconscious receives these emotionally charged visualizations as direct orders, immediately beginning the complex process of rearranging your internal programming to align with these new visual instructions. The more detailed, vivid, and emotionally authentic your mental images become, the more powerfully your subconscious responds to them. This is why people who practice conscious visualization with genuine feeling often experience seemingly miraculous transformations that appear to come from nowhere, but actually originate from the precise spiritual technology they've been applying. But perhaps the most profound pathway for transformation emerges through deep spiritual silence, that sacred state that exists beyond thought and reasoning, beyond analysis and mental effort. In this dimension of consciousness, your soul naturally aligns with God without any interference from limiting beliefs, past programming, or mental resistance. This isn't meditation in the traditional sense of focusing the mind. This is complete surrender into divine presence, where transformation happens through being rather than doing. In these moments of profound spiritual silence, truth becomes engraved into your subconscious sanctuary without any resistance whatsoever. Your conscious mind, with all its doubts and limitations, steps aside completely, creating a direct channel between divine wisdom and your receptive subconscious. This is where miracles happen, where impossible things become possible, where years of mental programming can be transformed in an instant of pure spiritual alignment. The beauty of this silent pathway lies in its effortlessness. You don't need to work harder, think better thoughts, or generate specific emotions. You simply enter the sacred space of divine silence and allow truth to write itself directly onto the tablet of your consciousness. In these holy moments, your subconscious becomes like virgin soil, receiving pure seeds of divine possibility that immediately begin germinating into new realities. What makes this entire transformation system so powerful is recognizing that you can deliberately access each of these pathways: reverent repetition, emotional impact, conscious visualization, and sacred silence, creating a comprehensive approach that addresses every aspect of subconscious reprogramming. Now, the critical factor that determines whether these methods produce temporary motivation or permanent transformation lies in understanding how to protect and maintain the new programming once it begins taking root in your consciousness. Write in the comments, "I see with my soul," if you're ready to. Communicate with your subconscious through the visual language it understands and the silent presence it responds to most deeply. The protection of your new spiritual programming becomes absolutely crucial when you understand this potentially dangerous reality. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what you desire and what you fear. This sacred sanctuary within you operates as a purely neutral recording device, capturing and manifesting whatever emotions you generate most consistently and intensely, regardless of whether those emotions are aligned with your conscious goals or completely contrary to them. This discovery explains why so many well-intentioned people remain trapped in cycles of limitation despite their sincere efforts to create positive change. They spend 15 minutes each morning affirming abundance and prosperity, then spend the remaining 23 hours and 45 minutes worrying about bills, complaining about their financial situation, and feeling anxious about their economic future. Their subconscious sanctuary receives these conflicting signals and responds to the stronger emotional charge, which unfortunately tends to be the fear and worry they're feeling most intensely throughout their day. Your subconscious operates like an incredibly sensitive emotional seismograph, constantly measuring the intensity and frequency of your feelings, then programming your reality to match whatever emotional vibration registers most powerfully on its internal instruments. This means that a few moments of doubt or fear experienced with intense emotion can completely override hours of positive affirmations spoken without genuine conviction. The system responds to emotional authenticity and intensity, not to good intentions or conscious desires. This revelation initially feels discouraging to many people because they realize they've been unconsciously sabotaging their own transformation efforts. But here's where this understanding becomes profoundly liberating. Once you recognize this emotional programming mechanism, you gain the power to deliberately redirect it. You can begin monitoring your emotional states throughout the day, catching yourself when you slip into fear-based thinking, and consciously returning to truth-based feeling before those limiting emotions have time to embed themselves in your subconscious sanctuary. The key to mastering this process lies in understanding that truth doesn't need to fight against falsehood, light doesn't need to battle darkness, and divine reality doesn't need to struggle against human limitation. Truth simply needs to be affirmed with authentic faith and emotional conviction. When you consciously affirm divine truth about yourself, your circumstances, and your potential with genuine feeling and unwavering faith, that truth automatically displaces any contradictory programming that may have been operating in your subconscious. This isn't a war between competing forces. It's a revelation process where light naturally illuminates and transforms everything it touches. Conscious affirmation with faith operates as the most powerful tool for re-educating your subconscious because it combines the precise communication methods your sanctuary responds to most readily: clear verbal instruction, authentic emotional charge, and divine truth content that aligns with your spiritual identity. When you declare with genuine faith, "I am loved by God," that truth doesn't need to fight against old feelings of unworthiness. It simply replaces them through its superior reality. When you affirm, with authentic conviction, "Divine wisdom guides my decisions," that truth doesn't struggle against past confusion. It establishes a new operating system that naturally produces clarity and insight. The process works through replacement rather than resistance, through affirmation rather than opposition. Now, what transforms this understanding from mere concept to practical power is learning how to maintain a consistent emotional atmosphere that supports your new programming rather than undermining it, because the strength of your spiritual foundation determines how quickly and permanently your external reality begins reflecting your internal transformation. Write in the comments, truth replaces fear, if you're ready to stop fighting against limitation and start affirming the divine reality that naturally displaces all forms of spiritual darkness. Maintaining this consistent emotional atmosphere becomes absolutely essential when you understand that your life is literally a mirror reflecting the image you maintain within your consciousness. This isn't metaphorical language or inspirational poetry. This is describing the actual mechanics of how reality formation works. Nothing can appear in your external experience without first being accepted as an internal image within your subconscious sanctuary. Every relationship, every opportunity, every challenge, every blessing that manifests in your visible world began as an invisible image that gained enough emotional charge and repetitive attention to cross the threshold from mental possibility to physical reality. This mirror principle operates with mathematical precision, reflecting back to you exactly what you've been holding most consistently in your inner vision. If your external circumstances feel limited, chaotic, or unfulfilling, they're providing you with perfect feedback about what images have been dominating your internal landscape. If certain patterns keep repeating in your relationships, career, or health, it's because the same mental images keep broadcasting from your subconscious, attracting experiences that match their vibrational signature. The transformative power of this understanding lies in recognizing that you have complete creative control over the images you choose to maintain within your consciousness. You're not a victim of random circumstances or external forces beyond your influence. You're the artist painting on the canvas of your own experience, and every brushstroke begins as an internal image before it appears on the external canvas of your life. But here's what makes this process so much more profound than simple visualization techniques. These images are far more than thoughts or mental pictures. They are charged mental forms, living energetic structures that carry specific emotional frequencies and vibrational signatures. When you maintain an image in your consciousness with authentic feeling and consistent attention, that image becomes a vibrational magnet, automatically attracting people, situations, and opportunities that resonate with its specific frequency. These emotionally charged mental forms don't just sit passively in your subconscious waiting to be manifested. They actively shape your vibration, influence your decisions, and guide your actions in ways that align with their programming. When you carry an internal image of yourself as abundant and blessed, that image subtly influences how you walk, how you speak, how you make decisions, and how you respond to opportunities. It creates a vibrational atmosphere around you that other people can sense and respond to, often in ways that support the manifestation of that abundant reality. Conversely, when you maintain internal images of limitation, struggle, or unworthiness, those charged mental forms create a completely different vibrational atmosphere that influences your behavior, decision-making, and the types of experiences you attract. The image operates like an invisible force field, shaping your reality from the inside out through countless micro-adjustments in your consciousness that eventually produce macro changes in your circumstances. This understanding revolutionizes your approach to personal transformation because it reveals that lasting change requires more than just positive thinking or behavioral modification. It requires deliberately creating and maintaining new mental images charged with authentic emotion and divine truth, then protecting those images from contamination by old programming or negative external influences. Now, what becomes absolutely crucial in this image creation process is understanding how to identify and dissolve the old mental forms that have been unconsciously governing your experience. Because these invisible patterns often operate below the threshold of conscious awareness while continuing to shape your reality in limiting ways. Write in the comments, I am the artist of my reality. If you're beginning to see how the images you maintain within your consciousness are literally painting the canvas of your external experience. The formation of these powerful mental images that govern your adult experience traces back to a time when you were completely defenseless against external programming. Your childhood years when you couldn't protect your mind from the constant stream of impressions, emotions, and experiences that were being permanently recorded in your developing subconscious sanctuary. During those formative years, your mental filters hadn't yet developed. Your critical thinking abilities were minimal, and your emotional boundaries were virtually non-existent. Every experience that carried significant emotional intensity during those vulnerable years became embedded as internal imagery in your subconscious, regardless of whether those experiences were accurate, representations of reality, or completely distorted interpretations of neutral events. When a parent repeatedly expressed frustration about money, your young mind didn't analyze the economic factors involved. It simply recorded the emotional charge around financial topics and created an internal image associating money with stress and struggle. When teachers criticized your creative expressions or academic performance, your developing consciousness didn't evaluate their teaching methods or personal limitations. It absorbed their judgments as truth about your capabilities and formed internal images of intellectual inadequacy that could influence your decisions for decades. When you witnessed conflict between adults, experienced rejection from peers, or encountered any situation that generated strong emotions, those moments became crystallized as mental forms that would continue broadcasting their original programming long after the actual events had ended. The invisible impact of this childhood imprinting process cannot be overstated, because these early formed images don't simply remain as passive memories. They become active filters through which you interpret every subsequent experience. Once your subconscious accepts these images as true representations of reality, they begin operating automatically, unconsciously, and persistently, shaping your perceptions and responses without any conscious awareness of their influence. These internalized images function like invisible lenses that distort your view of current situations, causing you to see threat where opportunity exists, limitation where abundance is available, and rejection where acceptance is being offered. They create a closed-loop system where your external reality keeps confirming your internal programming, not because that programming is accurate, but because it's filtering your perception and guiding your responses in ways that produce the expected results. This automatic repetition mechanism explains why intelligent, well-intentioned people often find themselves trapped in patterns that make no logical sense. Their conscious mind recognizes that certain behaviors or choices are counterproductive, yet they continue repeating the same decisions because invisible mental images are operating below the threshold of awareness, automatically triggering familiar responses to perceived threats or opportunities. The pattern becomes self-perpetuating because each time your external experience matches your internal image, that image gains additional emotional validation and becomes more deeply embedded in your subconscious programming. If you carry an internal image of relationships being painful, you'll unconsciously gravitate toward people or situations that confirm this belief, then use those painful experiences as evidence that your original image was correct. Breaking free from these automatic repetition cycles requires more than just willpower or positive thinking. It requires conscious recognition of the specific images that have been operating in your subconscious, deliberate dissolution of their emotional charge, and systematic replacement with new images aligned with divine truth rather than childhood interpretation. Now, what makes this transformation process both challenging and extraordinarily hopeful is understanding that these old images, no matter how deeply embedded they may seem, have no power beyond what you continue to give them through unconscious attention and emotional investment. Write in the comments, I break the old patterns if you're ready to identify and dissolve the childhood programming that has been unconsciously shaping your adult experience. The liberation process from these limiting childhood images requires a completely different approach than what most people attempt. Instead of fighting against these old mental forms or trying to suppress them through willpower, you must learn to see them with the light of spiritual understanding, recognizing them as learned responses rather than ultimate truths about your identity or potential. When you observe these patterns from this elevated perspective, you immediately begin dissolving their power over your consciousness. The first step in this liberation process involves declaring with gentle but firm authority that these images are not the truth about who you really are. You're not rejecting your past experiences or pretending they didn't happen. You're simply recognizing that the interpretations your young mind created about those experiences were based on limited understanding and don't represent your authentic spiritual identity. When you declare, "This image of limitation is not the truth about me as God's child," you're exercising your spiritual authority to separate temporary programming from eternal identity. Perhaps most importantly, you must learn to love these old images without fighting them, understanding that they were your psyche's attempt to protect you based on the information available at the time. Fighting against limiting beliefs often strengthens them by feeding them with emotional energy and attention. Instead, you can acknowledge these patterns with compassion, thanking them for their service while explaining that their protective function is no longer needed because you now have access to divine protection and guidance. Once you've lovingly released the old programming, you can consciously replace it with divine images that reflect your true spiritual nature and unlimited potential. This replacement process isn't about forcing positive thoughts over negative ones. It's about aligning your internal imagery with the divine blueprint that has always existed within your soul. You begin seeing yourself as God sees you, perfect, beloved, capable, and destined for abundant expression of divine life. This transformation becomes exponentially more powerful when you understand the profound creative force behind every word you speak. The ancient wisdom declaring, "In the beginning was the Word," reveals that verbal expression carries the same creative power that brought the universe into existence. This isn't metaphorical language, it's describing the actual mechanism through which invisible potential becomes visible reality. Every word you speak operates as a seed falling into the fertile garden of your subconscious sanctuary, where it will inevitably bear fruit according to its spiritual DNA. This means your casual conversations, your internal dialogue, your emotional expressions, and your declarative statements are continuously planting seeds that will mature into future experiences. The words you speak about your health are programming your body's responses. The words you use to describe your relationships are shaping your capacity for connection. The words you employ when discussing your finances are influencing your abundance consciousness. This word seed principle operates with absolute consistency, regardless of whether you're consciously aware of its power or completely ignorant of its influence. Your subconscious doesn't evaluate whether your words are spoken seriously or casually, whether they're intended as truth or exaggeration, whether they're positive or negative. It simply receives every verbal seed and begins the process of manifestation according to the vibrational frequency and emotional charge contained within those words. Understanding this creative power transforms every conversation into an opportunity for conscious planting, every declaration into an act of spiritual authority, and every verbal expression into a deliberate choice about what type of reality you're authorizing your subconscious to create. When you speak, you're not just communicating with other people, you're programming the creative mechanism that governs your entire life experience. Now, what makes this word power principle both incredibly exciting and potentially Dangerous is recognizing how your everyday speech patterns have been unconsciously seeding your subconscious garden with limitations, complaints, and negative expectations that are now manifesting as unwanted circumstances in your visible reality. Write in the comments, "My words create my world," if you're beginning to understand how every verbal expression is literally programming your future experience through the creative power of divine speech. The profound realization that fundamentally changes how you approach every conversation, every internal dialogue, and every verbal expression is understanding that your word carries sacred creative power. This isn't just inspirational language designed to make you feel important. This is describing the actual spiritual technology embedded within human speech. Every phrase you utter operates as a decree sent directly to the creative forces governing your reality. Every complaint functions as a curse that binds you to limitation. Every prayer serves as conscious sowing that will produce a corresponding harvest in your experience. Most people use their words carelessly, unconsciously broadcasting contradictory messages throughout their day that confuse their subconscious sanctuary and create chaotic manifestation patterns. They pray for abundance in the morning, then spend the afternoon complaining about lack. They affirm their health during meditation, then describe their aches and pains in vivid detail to anyone who will listen. They declare their faith in God's provision, then worry aloud about their financial security multiple times each day. This unconscious verbal programming creates a mixed signal environment where your subconscious receives conflicting instructions and responds by manifesting confused, inconsistent results. Your creative sanctuary doesn't know which verbal seeds to prioritize when you're simultaneously planting declarations of blessing and complaints of limitation, affirmations of faith, and expressions of doubt, prayers for breakthrough, and detailed descriptions of your current struggles. The transformative breakthrough occurs when you recognize that spoken word carries exponentially more creative power than silent thought. When you speak, something profound happens beyond the simple communication of ideas. Your cellular structure literally hears and responds to your verbal declarations. Every cell in your body acts as a tiny receptor, picking up the vibrational frequency of your words and adjusting its function accordingly. When you speak words of health, vitality, and divine life, your cellular consciousness receives those instructions and begins optimizing its performance to match that programming. Simultaneously, your spoken words create immediate changes in your personal vibrational field, that invisible energy signature that surrounds you and influences how others respond to your presence. Words of gratitude, faith, and divine connection elevate your vibrational frequency, creating an attractive magnetic field that draws positive people, opportunities, and circumstances into your experience. Words of complaint, worry, and limitation lower your vibrational signature, creating a repelling energy that pushes away the very blessings you've been praying to receive. Beyond these personal effects, your spoken words create ripples throughout the universal field of consciousness, triggering responses from the infinite intelligence that orchestrates all manifestation. The universe operates as a responsive system that continuously adjusts to match the vibrational instructions it receives from conscious beings. When you speak with authority, faith, and divine alignment, you're broadcasting clear signals that the universe immediately begins working to fulfill. This understanding transforms your approach to daily communication from casual expression to conscious creation. Every phone conversation becomes an opportunity to speak life rather than death, blessing rather than cursing, possibility rather than limitation. Every interaction with family, friends, or colleagues becomes a chance to exercise your creative word power in ways that build rather than tear down, heal rather than wound, inspire rather than discourage. Now, what makes this word power principle so practical and immediately applicable is understanding how to deliberately restructure your daily speech patterns to align with divine truth rather than human limitation, transforming your conversations into powerful spiritual practices that continuously strengthen your connection to Source. Write in the comments, "I speak life into existence," if you're ready to transform your daily conversations into conscious acts of divine creation through the sacred power of your spoken word. The perfect example of this divine word power in action can be witnessed in how Jesus approached every situation requiring transformation or healing. He never pleaded with God as if divine intervention were uncertain or dependent on external approval. Instead, he used his word as a sword of light, cutting through limitation with declarations that carried absolute spiritual authority. When he encountered sickness, he didn't pray hopefully for healing. He decreed health with unwavering certainty. When he faced death, he didn't beg for resurrection. He commanded life to return. Jesus understood the fundamental law that whatever impresses the subconscious with sufficient emotional conviction and spiritual authority will inevitably manifest in physical reality. He spoke from the consciousness of one who recognized his complete unity with divine source, knowing that his words carried the same creative power that brought the universe into existence. Every declaration he made was backed by absolute faith in the divine law governing manifestation, which is why his words produced immediate, tangible results that amazed everyone who witnessed them. This same creative authority is available to you, not because you need to become like Jesus, but because you already possess the same divine nature that he fully expressed. The difference lies not in spiritual capacity, but in the degree of recognition and faith with which you exercise that capacity. When you speak from the consciousness of your true spiritual identity, your words carry the same creative force that reshaped reality throughout his ministry. The key transformation in your approach occurs when you stop pleading and start decreeing, when you cease begging for divine intervention and begin exercising your spiritual authority as a child of God. This shift isn't about developing spiritual arrogance, it's about awakening to your authentic identity and the creative power that naturally flows through that recognition. This awakening becomes even more profound when you understand that you are literally God's temple, not constructed from stone and religious symbols, but serving as the living place where divine spirit chooses to dwell and express itself through human consciousness. This isn't metaphorical language or theological theory. This is the actual spiritual reality of your existence. Your consciousness serves as sacred space, where infinite intelligence meets finite expression, where divine possibility encounters human opportunity, where eternal truth manifests through temporal experience. However, this living temple requires ongoing maintenance and cleansing, because years of unconscious mental programming have left residues that interfere with the pure expression of divine nature through your consciousness. These mental residues aren't sins or moral failures. They're simply accumulated thoughts, beliefs, and emotional patterns that don't align with your true spiritual identity. Like dust that settles on furniture or cobwebs that form in unused corners, these limiting mental patterns obscure the natural radiance and creative power of your divine consciousness. The cleansing process doesn't require complicated rituals or lengthy spiritual disciplines. It simply requires conscious recognition of what needs to be released and deliberate replacement with truth that reflects your authentic spiritual nature. Every time you choose faith over fear, love over judgment, abundance consciousness over scarcity thinking, you're participating in this temple cleansing process. Every moment you speak divine truth instead of human limitation, you're purifying the sacred space of your consciousness. This understanding revolutionizes your daily spiritual practice because it reveals that every thought, word, and emotion is either contributing to the purification of your inner temple or adding to the accumulation of mental residue. You're constantly either building up or tearing down, blessing or cursing, sanctifying or contaminating the sacred space where divine spirit seeks to express itself through your life. Now, what makes this temple cleansing process both urgent and extraordinarily hopeful is recognizing that the moment you begin removing these old mental residues, divine power immediately starts flowing through your consciousness with greater clarity, strength, and creative effectiveness. Write in the comments, "I am God's living temple," if you're ready to take responsibility for maintaining the sacred space of your consciousness and removing every mental residue that interferes with divine expression through your life. The cleansing process that restores your inner temple to its original purity operates through the gentle but powerful combination of spiritual light, divine love, and consistently affirmed truth. This isn't a harsh or violent purification that requires struggle or self-condemnation. It's a natural healing process that works through illumination rather than elimination, through recognition rather than resistance, through love rather than judgment. When you approach the old mental residues in your consciousness with a spiritual light, you're simply seeing them clearly for what they truly are: learned responses, inherited beliefs, and temporary programming that never reflected your authentic divine nature. This illumination automatically begins dissolving their power because illusions cannot survive in the presence of truth. The moment you recognize a limiting belief as an illusion rather than reality, you've already begun the process of releasing its hold over your consciousness. The love component of this cleansing process involves treating these old patterns with compassion rather than condemnation, understanding that they developed as your psyche's attempt to protect you based on limited information and childhood interpretation. When you approach your own mental programming with the same love and patience you would show a confused child, the resistance that often blocks transformation begins melting away naturally. The affirmed truth element provides the replacement content that fills the space. Once occupied by limiting beliefs, nature abhors a vacuum, and consciousness follows the same principle. You cannot successfully remove old programming without simultaneously installing new truth. As you consistently affirm divine realities about your identity, potential, and relationship with Source, these truths begin establishing themselves as the new operating system for your consciousness. This entire process requires repetition with love, understanding that transformation happens gradually through consistent application rather than dramatic one-time events. Each time you recognize an illusion, affirm truth, enter silence, and repeat with loving intention, you're participating in a sacred purification ritual that gradually restores your consciousness to its original divine clarity. The silence component creates the receptive space where new programming can take root without interference from analytical thinking or emotional resistance. In these moments of deep inner quiet, your subconscious becomes maximally open to receiving divine truth, allowing the cleansing and renewal process to occur at levels beneath conscious awareness. This understanding completely transforms your concept of prayer from desperate supplication to powerful affirmation of spiritual truth. Most people approach prayer as begging, pleading with a distant God to intervene in their circumstances from outside their experience. But authentic prayer operates as proclamation of God's presence, here and now, recognition of divine reality that already exists within your consciousness, waiting to be acknowledged and activated. When you pray from this consciousness of affirmation rather than desperation, you're not trying to convince God to change your circumstances. You're aligning your awareness with divine truth that naturally transforms your circumstances. You're not asking for something you don't have. You're claiming something you've always possessed but temporarily forgotten. You're not hoping for future intervention. You're activating present spiritual reality. This shift from supplication to affirmation transforms prayer from passive hoping to active creation, from spiritual begging to divine declaration, from religious ritual to creative act. Every true prayer becomes a moment of conscious participation in the ongoing creation of reality, a deliberate choice to align your consciousness with divine truth rather than human limitation. Now, what makes this affirmative approach to prayer so extraordinarily powerful is understanding how to structure your prayers in ways that communicate directly with your subconscious sanctuary, while simultaneously aligning your entire being with the divine source from which all manifestation flows. Write in the comments, "I pray with divine authority," if you're ready to transform your prayer life from desperate pleading to powerful affirmation of the spiritual truth that already exists within your consciousness. This affirmative approach to prayer operates as what can be called scientific prayer because it uses spiritual law consciously and deliberately rather than randomly or hopefully. Just as physical science operates by understanding and applying natural laws, spiritual science works by recognizing and cooperating with divine principles that govern consciousness and manifestation. When you understand these spiritual laws, you can pray with the same confidence that a scientist approaches a laboratory experiment, knowing that specific causes will produce predictable effects. The fundamental shift that makes prayer scientifically effective involves thinking from truth rather than from appearance, speaking from divine reality rather than from human circumstances. Instead of praying about the problem you see with your physical eyes, you pray from the solution that already exists in divine mind. Instead of affirming what your senses report about limitation, you declare what God has already established about abundance, healing, and perfect provision. This approach requires a complete reversal of ordinary thinking patterns. Most people look at their current circumstances and then try to pray their way out of them, essentially affirming the reality of limitation while hoping for divine intervention to change what appears to be true. Scientific prayer works in the opposite direction. It begins with divine truth as the starting point and then aligns consciousness with that truth, regardless of what appearances might suggest. When you affirm what God has already declared true about you, your circumstances, and your potential, you're not trying to create something new or convince divinity to modify its position. You're simply awakening to reality that already exists in divine consciousness, allowing that eternal truth to manifest through your awareness and experience. This transforms prayer from negotiation to recognition, from petition to realization, from asking to claiming. The power of this approach multiplies exponentially when you understand that the Christ you've been taught to worship as a distant historical figure is actually a living principle dwelling within your own consciousness. Christ isn't a person you follow from afar or hope to meet someday in heaven. Christ is the perfect spiritual idea of yourself as originally conceived in God's mind, the divine template that represents your authentic identity before any human programming or limitation was added. This Christ consciousness within you contains the complete blueprint for perfect health, unlimited abundance, divine wisdom, perfect love, and spiritual authority. It's not something you need to develop or earn through good behavior. It's something you need to recognize and activate through conscious awareness. The Christ principle has been waiting patiently within your consciousness throughout every moment of confusion, struggle, or limitation, ready to express itself the instant you remember its presence. This understanding revolutionizes your entire spiritual journey because it reveals that everything you've been seeking externally already exists internally. Every prayer for healing activates the Christ consciousness that knows only perfect wholeness. Every request for guidance awakens the divine wisdom that already knows the perfect path. Every plea for provision connects you with the Christ abundance that recognizes no limitation. The transformation process accelerates dramatically when you stop trying to become something you're not and start remembering who you've always been beneath the accumulated layers of human conditioning and limited thinking. Now, what becomes absolutely crucial in this awakening process is understanding how to nurture and cultivate this Christ consciousness within your daily experience so that it becomes your dominant identity rather than just an occasional spiritual insight. Write in the comments, "Christ lives in me," if you're beginning to recognize that the divine presence you've been seeking everywhere else has been dwelling within your own consciousness all along. This journey we've taken together through the sacred mysteries of your spiritual subconscious represents just the beginning of what's possible when you truly understand the divine creative power dwelling within your consciousness. If you've stayed with me through this entire exploration, you're clearly someone who recognizes that transformation isn't just possible, it's your birthright as a child of God. The insights we've shared today about your inner temple, the power of divine imagery, and the Christ consciousness within you aren't just concepts to be understood intellectually. They're spiritual technologies to be applied daily in your quest for authentic spiritual awakening. This is exactly the kind of deep, practical wisdom I'm committed to sharing with you regularly on this channel because I believe you deserve access to truth that actually transforms rather than just inspires. If this resonates with your soul and you want to continue receiving this caliber of spiritual insight, I'd love for you to subscribe and become part of our growing community of awakened souls who are serious about manifesting their divine potential. There's something powerful about connecting with others who understand that spirituality isn't just Sunday morning religion, it's a daily practice of conscious creation. And if you made it all the way to this moment with me, write in the comments, "This message was meant for me," because honestly, it takes a special kind of spiritual hunger to absorb this much truth in one sitting. When I see that phrase, I'll know I'm connecting with someone who's truly ready for transformation, not just casual inspiration. If this content created that spark of recognition in your consciousness that yes, this is what I've been searching for, feeling, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps me understand that this depth of spiritual teaching is what you're craving, and it encourages me to keep diving deep rather than staying on the surface. There's a video right here that takes this understanding to an even more practical level, showing you exactly how to apply these principles in your daily life for immediate results. Click and continue with me over there because what we've covered today is just the foundation for what's truly possible when you fully awaken to the divine power within your consciousness.